What's going on, guys? Dan from SSG bringing you another Edison format deck profile. This time I'm profiling my Dark Creator Turbo deck, or you can call it Plants vs. Zombies. I don't really know what to call this deck, but I took it to my Edison local this past week and ended up winning the tournament, going 3-0 with it. Let's get right into the deck. We have full 3 copies of the Dark Creator. This card is extremely powerful. I'm surprised more people aren't trying to play it. I think it just needs to find its right home. It was really good in the Dragon Norellis deck, but this deck really just hones in on Dark Creator as the main win condition. Very powerful card. We're looking to drop this as early as turn 1. We can turbo it out, but also in the late game, just really powerful. Goes over the top of like a lot of what the decks in the format can do. Just goes over the top of their game plan, completely kills them. Sometimes you can just win on the same turn you drop this card. Sometimes it's more of a value card where you drop it down and you keep recurring cards for value. Really strong card. I think a lot more people should look into playing it. Then, of course, we have 3 copies of Mystic Tomato. This is the best way to turbo out the Dark Creator. We can crash all the tomatoes into our grave, set up a really easy way to summon Dark Creator. Also, this card's just very good. It gives a lot of good dark cards, just like, you know, a lot of engines it sets up, gives you a lot of inevitability. Doesn't let you die if they like try to OTK you through a push. Like Tomato's just gonna make sure you can never really die through their push. Good card to set on turn 1 as well. You don't have to be turboing out the Dark Creator for this card to be good. Just get you into your engines and very good. And I'll show you how to do the turbo Dark Creator play at the very end. We have 2 copies of Lonefire Blossom as well as 1 Tytannial. These are the plants we play in our deck. This is why you could call it a plant deck as well as a zombie or dark deck. It's really important to find Mystic Tomato for the ability to chain multiple darks into your graveyard. So you have 5 copies of Mystic Tomato in that sense. But whenever you draw the tomato first, you also have Tytannial. And sometimes even if you don't have tomato, you just turn 1 Tytannial, set a trap behind it. Really strong. Lonefire is just a really powerful card. Finds us 2 cards that are really good, whether it just be for beating down or for our main game plan. A lot of the times when you have Dark Creator, you can set up boards like tomato plus Tytannial, and that's exactly what something you want to be doing. So that is our little plant engine we have going on there. We have 1 Armageddon. This is really important for crashing the tomatoes and setting up our graveyard. Just as a one-of, it's fine to open with. Setting darks into your grave, we want to be doing that, but most of the time we want it in our deck to summon off of Mystic Tomato. Very good card. We have, going into the zombie engine here, 2 copies of Goblin Zombie, 1 copy of Mezuki, and 1 copy of Plaguespreader Zombie. This is just a small zombie package that gives us a lot of play in the late game, makes it so that we're really resilient and that we can grind out our opponents, making powerful synchro plays. You can push with these cards a lot, but most of the time it's just going to be a floating engine that you can always use. But once you have, like, you're in the late game and you have Dark Creator out, you can just do some really nasty things with these 4 cards. So we only play these 4. I had Zombie Master in initially, but I found that it was a little too clunky for what the deck was trying to do, especially drawing it early. Whereas most of these are just fine to draw early, especially Goblin Zombie. It's just, you can summon it off Mystic Tomato, you can set it on turn 1 to go grab Mezuki and use it for discard. And Plaguespreader Zombie is probably the single most important card in the deck because we're going to be using its effect to reborn itself quite often and sometimes as early as on turn 1. So we'll get into that later, but really strong engine here. Small, concise, doesn't really interrupt anything else the deck's trying to do. And sort of comboing with the Plaguespreader Zombie is 2 copies of Destiny Hero Malicious. We're going to be very aggressive with our Malicious and Plaguespreader here because we want them to answer our threats. And then waste our cards to answer our level 8 synchros, and then drop the Dark Creator and our more powerful cards on the later turns of the game. And being as aggressive as possible with the 2 Melee and the Plague really makes it so that there's a lot of high pressure on our opponent that they can't necessarily deal with all the time. You kind of can just run away with the game, whether that be with a Tytannial plus a level 8 synchro, or even turn 1 Dark Creator plus level 8 synchro. So overall, these cards are just really strong, and floating tomato into any of these cards is very strong. Like starting your turn with a Mally in play, with a Mally in your deck, just the plays are endless. You can do a lot of different stuff, so I like that engine a lot. It does a lot for the deck. 2 copies of Caius. I initially only had 1 in here, but Caius is just a great card. I ended up on 2. You can sacrifice a Goblin Zombie after floating off of Mystic Tomato for extreme value. You can sacrifice the malicious off tomato, very good value. Also in the late game, Dark Creator plus this card is absurd. Just reborning free fodder to tribute off for Caius. Really, really strong interaction there. So Caius is just what we want to be doing. With Mystic, we have another good target for Mystic Tomato in Sangan. You can search this off Tomato, go get your Lonefire Blossom, summon out Tytannial. That's most of the time what you're going to be doing when you're going for Sangan. But also, same thing, sacking it for Caius, very good. Setting this on turn 1 to go find your Mystic Tomato. Very good card, searches a lot of different things in our deck. And then we have one copy of Dark Grepher. I'm not too sure about this card. It's been good every time I drew it. But I think it's one of the cards that you don't necessarily need because the Mystic Tomatoes really set up your deck for you. But this card just helps us aggro out the Mali and plaguespreader play, gets a lot of darks in our graveyard very fast, which is, helps enable the Dark Creator. So I do like this card as a one of. I think it's good. I think if you're going to play Dark Creator in your deck, you probably have to play this card. So it started in the deck and it has been decent. Of course, with Dark Arm Dragon, you can drop this card on turn 1 with the tomatoes. You can late game, you have way too many darks in the grave. Dark Creator just banishes a bunch of them out of the graveyard. You have malicious to remove itself. Plaguespreader removes itself. Mezuki removes the dark out of the graveyard. So a lot of ways to enable your graveyard. You're going to summon this card early and often. The card is very strong. We have Gorz, of course, just standard card. Last card I added to the deck. I thought it's good. We can play it, so let's play it. And then I have one copy of Krebons here because we're playing Emergency Teleport. No Psychic Commander. I think having access to the level 7s for Black Rose Dragon specifically is very strong. However, I'm not exactly thrilled with playing 2 bricks in the deck. I think like the tuners are just fine in this deck to draw, but I just don't want too many non-dark cards in the deck. And I think just 1 Krebons, 1 teleport is very strong, and it's consistent enough. You get the power, but also like drawing Krebons is not that bad. You can reborn it with Dark Creator. So we have the 1 Krebons, and then onto spells. Favorite part of the deck is the spell lineup, other than Dark Creator. Dark Creator's favorite part of the deck, but then the spell lineup. All powerful 1-ofs. We have Heavy Storm and Giant Trunade. We got to make sure our Tomato Crashing resolves. Got to make sure our Dark Creator resolves. Make sure our Dark Arm resolves. Even our Caius plays. Protecting those is very good. These 2 cards get that done. We have Allure of Darkness for consistency, and also setting up return plays, getting rid of extra tomatoes that we have floating in our hand. Very good. And we have, of course, Teleport. Card's just broken. Just really, really strong. I think playing the 1 Krebons is like perfect amount of downside for playing such a powerful card. I don't want to add any more to that engine. Just sort of really broken. One of the best extenders. Really, really, really strong card. We have Foolish Burial. You can send so many things in the deck. Plaguespreader Zombie, Malicious, Mezuki. Just does so many different things. Helps fill your grave with darks. Very good card in this deck. I have a Book of Life here, which is sort of like another teleport. You just build your own teleport by having Plague in the graveyard. You're going to have Plaguespreader in the graveyard most times on turn 1. So this card plus Plaguespreader in the grave is your own emergency teleport. Plus the incidental graveyard hate is actually very important in the format right now. Taking care of something like a Treeborn Frog is very important. We have Burial from a Different Dimension, mostly to just recur Mezuki into our graveyard, but also it's also like an hate card. When people side in cards like Soul Release, you can just put 3 darks back into your grave, make your Dark Creator alive again. Really good card. Most of the time we side out some of our Dark Creators in the sideboard games because it's hard to drop him, but this card helps us like actually be able to summon him in those games too. So good card, really broken with Mezuki, so of course we're going to run it. Then if we have 1 copy of Brain Control, really strong in this deck. We have so much access to our tuners from Mystic Tomato, Sangan, Armageddonite gets our Plaguespreader Zombie. So many things we can do, and this card can easily game shot our opponent alongside Dark Creator, Dark Arm Dragon. So many cards that can just win, so we want to play that. And so much so, we're also playing 1 copy of Mark of the Rose. We're playing enough plants in our deck that we can enable 1 of this, and we're just going to snatch steal our opponent's stuff, synchro with it, sacrifice it, just kill our opponent on that turn when we activate this card. Having the 2 essentially brain controls or snatch steals, whatever you want to call them, just really strong. I've always liked Mark of the Rose. Whenever I can play it, I try to. Really good spell lineup there. All powerful one-ups. And onto the traps. We have 3 copies of Wing Blast. Helps enable our game plan. Helps us do a whole lot of things. But mainly, we're just going to set up a board, Wing Blast our opponent out of the game. That's basically what we're going to do. A lot of times it's on turn 1. Lonefire to Tytannial. Set a Wing Blast. And then just kind of get there. You know, following turn we can summon Tomato. They have like a lot of things to push through. Really strong. Also just discards our Mally. Discards our Plague. Discards our mezuki after we searched it off of Goblin Zombie, setting up for extending plays on the following turn. Really strong card. Everyone knows like Wing Blast. We're gonna play it as often as we can. It's one of the best trap cards in Edison format. I like torrential in this deck. Just setting it behind Sangan, setting it behind Goblin Zombie. Strong effect. I like it a lot. Solemn Judgment helps us push our game pushes through, protects our Dark on Dragon, protects our Dark Creator. Just helps us go off. I have 1 skill drain in the main board. This card is surprisingly good in this deck. You can't really, like, there's so many effects that don't really get affected by it, whether that be the Mystic Tomatoes, Sangan, the Mally Plaguespreader engine, the 2 Goblin Zombies, mezuki, Tomatoes, of course. The lonefires can still trigger while this is in play. So, it doesn't really affect us that much. It stops Dark Creator, but like even if we drop Dark Creator with this in play, Dark Creator is just like a 23 stick or a 3000 wall. So overall very good. Also, the access to the level 8 synchros so easily with Mally and Plaguespreader Zombie make this card very powerful, as we can set it behind those cards and basically just win. Like setting it behind a Stardust Dragon or a Colossal Fighter, which happened a few times in the tournament. Colossal was unreal. Those cards are just really powerful, and it's really easy to set up those type of boards in this deck. So skill drain is really going to lock us out of our opponent, and it's also just a one-up. It's just good. You can kind of play a controlling game. You don't have to draw it every game to win. It's just a one-of. Like you're gonna just get people sometimes if their deck is really weak to it. So I like it as a one-of in the main board. And then we have 1 trap dustshoot because it's broken, and then 1 return because it's also broken. It's really, really broken in this deck. Allure, Darkness, Dark Creator, mezuki, so many ways to remove cards. You're going to summon 4 or 5 cards off of this card. It's just insta game. And when you draw it on turn 1, like in your opening hand, you can just set it up so easily, whether it be Dark Grepher, Mystic Tomato. You just send all your darks to the graveyard, send your Mally, send your Plague, get a level 8 synchro, make them deal with that, and then return kill them. Like that's just how this card is. It's just inherently broken. They can't play around it. They always have to worry about it, and it's in our deck for a reason. Very strong. We have the extra deck here. We have 2 level 5s, Catastor and Magical Android. We have Brionac, Goyo, and Rising Hades. All really strong. I like Hades a lot. You have easy access to it, so you might as well play it. Brionac really good at making your game pushes. Goyo just a general good card. We have 1 Black Rose. Doesn't come up that much because we're not playing the Psychic Commander, but I think it's good enough to play. And then for the level 8s, we summon them so frequently. I actually have 2 copies of a couple of them. I have 2 copies of Stardust Dragon because we're normally going to summon this on turn 1. And then sometimes you just want the second one. I think if I were to cut something for like an Armory Arm or like some other toolbox card, it would definitely be one of the Stardust Dragons. And I would definitely cut that over one of the 2 Dark End Dragons that we play. 2 Dark Ends. This card, you just summon it on turn 1. There's been some situations in some matchups where I feel like it's just good to summon it like on turn 1, just straight up, even without activating its effect. Like it just puts so much pressure on your opponent. And the fact that it's a dark monster is why we're summoning it so often in the early parts of the game, because we are going to be able to reborn it off of the Dark Creator as long as it was summoned properly. And it's just really broken. Card's really strong. Recurring a Dark End Dragon is just something that is very, very hard for a lot of decks to deal with. So we're playing that at 2. Colossal Fighter, really great in combination with Skill Drain. You're going to have access to this card whenever you need it. Very good against Honest. Good card. We have Thought Ruler Archfiend, Red Dragon Archfiend, Mistworm, and Chimera Tech for the Cyber Dragons in the sideboard. On to sideboard real quick. 3 GD Crow, 2 Cyber Dragon, 1 Trag. You could probably play Trag in the main board, but I kind of just like in the side for decks that have a hard time dealing with it. Decks that you can have similar levels, you can take things from your opponent, and also just just decks that like try to kill you early, or JD and kill you. So helps protect you in that way. We have 3 copies of Lightning Vortex. I kind of just been up to 3 on this. One of our local players is playing dragons like every week, so we just need to like be able to blow that up. But I just find it's good in like a lot of matchups. I find myself bringing in at least 2 copies against people. The discard is very good in this deck. I like it at 3. I think it's gonna stay that way in this list at least. We have 1 MST and 1 mind control. Like I said, a lot of access to our tuner monsters. We're going to be able to make very powerful synchro plays consistently. We can like Mystic Tomato crash, go get our plaguespreader, then like mind control the monster we crashed into. A lot of different things you can do with this card, so I decided to sideboard it. 2 copies of Pulling the Rug. In this deck specifically, you can lose to Caius very easily by like your Mystic Tomato getting banished, your Goblin Zombie getting banished in the early game, and you kind of just get blown out if you don't have some sort of follow-up play. You can get stuck with Dark Creator in your hand. So two Pulling the Rugs just prevents that from happening. It's also just a very good card in general. I like it. It's a good card. I find it recently been more impressed with it, so very good there. We also have Dust Tornado, additional back row hate, and the second copy of Skill Drain, which is just broken. The fact that we can play Skill Drain in our deck is very strong. Quick, like, not combo tutorial, but the way to get the darks in the graveyard on turn 1. You have the 3 Mystic Tomatoes and also the Lonefires to go find them, but you just want to crash all your tomatoes into their monsters. So you have 0 darks in grave on the early turns of the game. You just go Tomato Crash, Tomato Crash, Tomato Crash, all in the graveyard. Armageddonite effect. You can send, then I usually send Plaguespreader Zombie just to have access to it if something goes wrong. That's our graveyard now. 4 darks. Crash this. Now the Dark Creator can come out. And what I usually do is remove a plant, one of these, to special summon the Armageddon back, and then Armageddon will get its effect and send Malicious to the graveyard. And now we have the Malicious Plaguespreader set up as well. And I like summoning it. I like doing Dark and Dragon and then sending the monster that we crashed the tomatoes into, because it just puts so much pressure on our opponent. Like having this board on turn 1 and having dealt with their monster is very good. A lot of times you have to fight through back rows and things like that, but this is the sort of like board you end up with often in this deck. And being able to just have this recurring, having this they have to deal with, or they're just going to keep sending their monsters, having this like recurring value over time. They need to answer this board or they are literally just valued and like killed out of the game. Very strong play there. But yeah, that's the deck, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I brewed this deck up myself, went 3-0 at locals with it. Let me know what you guys think. I worked pretty hard on this deck. I thought it's a lot of fun. Dark Creator is just an awesome card. I played it a lot in my childhood as it was just a fun card to build around. And I think more people should do that. So without further ado, this is Dan V from SSG signing out.